Hello, YouTube. Welcome to another exciting episode here on Wild West Trail. All you guys know who I am, but I want to introduce you to Nathan. Actually, is your last name Dixon?
Dickeson.
Dickeson. And I first met him on Instagram. He's got a great following there, and I really like what he preaches, what he's talking about. And we thought we'd take this time to kind of debate where's the best place to homestead, whether it is Missouri or Alaska. So, Nathan, take away, introduce yourself to people who might not know who you are.
So my name is Nathan Dickeson, and I designed a self-sufficient house that I call the Zion Home. And basically, it just uses a bunch of different technologies that I combine together to try and make off-grid living as cheap and as easy as possible.
Hell yeah, and you chose Missouri, and I chose Alaska. We have similar goals in mind, and obviously each of them have their strengths and weaknesses. Definitely. So let's just start with taxes. So in Alaska, I have no state income taxes. The borough I live in is a 3% sales tax, but that's not too hard to get around if you wanted to. But that would be illegal, so which I wouldn't condone. And then the mill rate here is pretty low for property tax. My mill rate is about 8, and then I get a property exemption of 50,000 if I live here full time. So what are you dealing with over in Missouri?
So just a slight correction. The Missouri area that he's talking about is part of a bigger area that I call the Zion region. It includes Missouri and Arkansas, and it kind of bleeds over into the other states surrounding it. I am actually located in Oklahoma, just kitty corner to Missouri.
There you go.
But so Oklahoma has some really good low levels of taxes. Like my property tax. Yes, I have property tax, unlike Alaska, but it's only, I think it was $160 last year.
Yep.
So it's not a giant burden of a tax deal, but there is a property tax involved with Oklahoma. As for so in terms of overall tax burden, there was a chart, and I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head. I think Alaska is like 48th lowest of overall tax burden. Alaska's really low down. Oklahoma, I believe, was like 45, and then Missouri was like 42. So they're
Mhm.
all together, they're all really low on the tax scale, which is something that you would want when you're looking to homestead and be self-reliant, because taxes are money out of your pocket that you need to help develop some stuff like a chicken coop.
Right, right. It's like it's your money, right? You worked for it. I don't remember Uncle Sam being there 30% of the time when I'm working, but they somehow
Yeah.
think they are. But I know property taxes are local, guys. I know there's a difference, federal and local. I get it. I get it. But overall, so taxes are low in both places, which is what you want. So that kind of bleeds into the next point that we want to bring up, which is laws. Specifically gun laws. Is an easy one to kind of point to. If you have a lot of liberties with your guns, you probably have a lot of liberties with everything else. So in Alaska, our gun law is very simple. Second Amendment,
hmm
black and white. You're American citizen, you can carry arms. What's it? I'm thinking Oklahoma is probably similar.
Oklahoma is very similar. Oklahoma is actually more red than Alaska. Oklahoma's the most red state in the union, which is something I like to brag about. But so gun laws very, very easy. And just to bring it back to the Zion region, so geographically, the climate is very hospitable to homesteading in the entire area. But if you actually look at a map that I have on my Instagram, I have a very sharp turnaround of excluding Illinois. Illinois should be included in the climate that is hospitable to homesteading, but the laws in Illinois, they have high taxes, they have high regulations, they make basically being self-reliant extremely difficult in Illinois. So even though geographically it's fantastic for self-reliance, um, thanks to the laws, it's not.
Right. I mean, and that's kind of there's an old proverb. I think it's Confucius, but anyway, it's like a woman and she's crying because her husband was eaten by a tiger, her son was eaten by a tiger. Confucius asks her, "Why are you crying?" She's like, "Well, a tiger ate my husband." And he's like, "Well, why do you live here?" And she says, "Well, the king is much more benevolent here than any other place." And so there's a moral in that where people would rather deal with wilderness and wild beasts than they would oppressive tyranny. And Illinois
Mhm.
certainly fits the description of oppressive tyranny. As somebody from Illinois originally, I
Oh,
can say
nice.
that. Yeah. Yes.
So you
Don't
know
go there.
exactly what I'm talking about.
I do. My parents are still there. I don't know. I think their sales tax is double digits. It's like
Mhm.
11%. Yeah, it's too much. But which also building codes. I don't have any. I
Yep.
know HOA, obviously. I don't think you have one either.
Nope.
But are there any building codes where you live?
So Oklahoma is very non-regulated on building codes. So out on the county level, there is no building codes whatsoever. I did not for building my house, I did not have to get any permits. I didn't have to get any approval. I didn't have to draw up any official blueprints. I just went out into the woods with a couple of power tools and a bunch of supplies, and then 2 weeks later, I had a house.
There you go. What was, if you don't mind me asking, what was the ballpark? How much did you spend?
So the the house isn't fully completed yet.
Sure.
But to finish framing it and enclosing it and doing all of what you kind of think of as roughing in a house was a little under $10,000.
And why would that be better than working for somebody else for 30 years to pay off a mortgage with a down payment of more than 10,000?
Well, there's lots of reasons, and you're getting into the money side of me. So first off, $10,000 is a fair amount, but over a couple of years, almost anybody who's disciplined can save up for $10,000.
Hmm.
The difference is now I don't have a mortgage. Now I don't have any interest. So when you have a mortgage, typically you pay 2/3 of your mortgage payment to interest, and only 1/3 of it goes to the actual asset itself. So if you buy a $300,000 house over the course of your lifetime, you're going to spend about $900,000 on it. Um,
Right.
Relatively.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then you've spent $900,000 just to continue the analogy, and you only have an asset that's worth 300,000.
What a great
But
investment. I can't
yeah,
imagine. I can't
yeah,
imagine building your own house. Right. We're the
houses,
crazy. We're crazy for
yeah.
building our own houses. Yeah.
Um, but whereas this, now I've spent $10,000, I have a house. Now my cost of living plummets. When you don't have a housing payment, when you don't have a utility payment, how much money do you really need to make from your part-time job to cover your food? Because we're not even into the homesteading stage
Right.
yet, just to cover your food, your phone bill, and your transportation costs. And that's pretty much the bulk of all that's really left of big expenditures is those three things: your food, your phone, and your transportation. And those they can't really get rid of for the most part, but you can, with the exception of the food. But by just that payment of $10,000, your house might be more expensive. Um, you've cut the cords to the point where you can go out into the countryside, even if you don't have a way of making money off of your homestead itself. If you're not business minded in that aspect, you can go to town one day a week, and that'll cover the bulk of your costs of living, which
Right.
means you now have freedom.
Right.
And so that's why I did it, and that's I think why you did it.
Yeah, well, there's no arguments there, but it does bring in the farming potential, which I'm definitely I'm not gonna lie, Alaska, the farming potential, it's here. We can grow root crops, potatoes, beets. I have an apple orchard, but I'm certain that speaking of, I so to kind of get it, I know you're growing apples, so that's kind of
Yeah.
our we're both kind of hedging our bets on making some money off our homesteads. But
Mhm.
I had to graft my apples onto Arctic root stocks so they could survive the
Mhm.
winters up here. And did you plant them from seeds?
So the apples I'm not planting from seeds,
You're not planting from seeds.
but peaches, apricots, plums, walnuts, persimmons, um, let's see, sumac. Uh, I think all of those I planted from seed.
Wow.
Um, and so the reason why I'm not planting apples from seeds and all the rest of them from seed is when you plant a peach pit, a peach tastes mostly like a peach. There's very little sway in different types of peaches. Now, I love peaches, so I know there's a big difference between a Madison peach versus a Sunrise peach.
Mhm.
But overall, it's still a peach. Apples, especially apples that you buy from the grocery store, um, the apple variety that you're buying typically was pollinated by a crab apple. So the apple seed is going to be 50% a nice quality apple and 50% a probably not so good apple. And so if you plant that from seed, you're going to get probably not that good of an apple. But whereas if you plant the peaches from seeds, you're going to probably get a good peach.
Right, right. You need to clone apples to keep the
Hmm.
varieties good. Yeah.
Yeah.
How
But
much, what's your acreage? What are you working with?
I have 10 acres.
10 acres. Yeah. That's
So
enough.
my house is situated at the very top of the mountain, and then I have about uh 2 acres of really flat, and then I have 2 acres of hill, and then I have a steep drop off. Luckily, there's a road that cuts right through there as well. And then I have 5 acres of gentle hill that goes all the way out to the rest of my property.
That's nice. And you probably were able to get a good deal on the land because of the topographic extremes, I'm
Yep.
guessing.
Yeah.
Yep.
I only paid $20,000 for my land.
That's a good deal. That's a very good deal. You have any views from up top there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can pull up some pictures, but I have some fantastic views.
Oh yeah,
But
that's nice.
I can mess with that if we want to
Yeah.
continue the conversation.
Yeah, you should follow him on Instagram. Speaking of, let's give you a little plug here. So Instagram is your main channel that I know you from. Do you have any other
Uh,
channels that
so
you're on?
I so I focus mostly on Instagram and TikTok because they both share the same format right now.
Okay.
I'm still trying to figure out my style for long form um, content. I do have 2 podcasts. So Instagram and TikTok, they're both Nathan Dickeson. And then I have a podcast called The Zion Home, which is named after my home design and after the Zion region that I've been talking about. And you can find that on Spotify. And then I have another podcast called The Principles of Success, which is where the money side of me comes in. And I talk about just basic success things like hard work, and then I cover things like finances. And then this year I'm covering the principles of happiness. So I've been doing
Wow.
that for several years. So there's my plugs.
That's good. That's good. That's a very well-rounded homestead, and I think I think that's why people are watching this. Number one, and why people are homesteading. It's more, the lifestyle is all-encompassing, and it really kind of reflects kind of like your inner personality more so than if you have to sacrifice so much of your life to work a 9 to 5 or work to make somebody else rich that like however many years that you live in those urban environments, you just sacrifice a little bit of yourself at a time until after about a decade you don't even recognize the person in the mirror anymore, which I'm sure you talk about all the time. Now let's skip down. Let's see the number 5 topic here between Oklahoma and Alaska, people, because this is what you came for. And this is where I'm gonna say it right now. This is where I punch above my weight class here. Hunting and gathering. What kind of hunting opportunities do you have down there?
So Oklahoma has some very flexible hunting laws. Um, there's not big game like what you have in Alaska. We don't have moose, we don't have grizzlies. But
Elk? Do you have elk?
the Panhandle has elk, not in my area,
Okay.
but so deer, which is pretty much anywhere. Oklahoma, you can shoot up to 6 deer per season. And while deer aren't big themselves, 6 deer is more than enough meat to feed a family for a year.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that's not including any livestock that you're adding to that. There's also black bear season. That's a really restricted season. And then there's a lot of wild hogs down in the south. And so, pretty much anywhere in the South, hog season is year round. There isn't a season. You can shoot as many as you want, as often as you want. People will get in helicopters with machine guns to shoot hogs down in the South. So there's plenty of hunting to do down in the southern region of the Zion region, which is where I am.
Oh yeah, and you got turkey too, right?
Yep, there's Turkey.
Yeah. Yeah, so you could there. I mean, I would argue theoretically you could actually. It's probably easier to collect, venison than it is moose. I mean, it is.
Mm.
Uh, but where Alaska kind of has a lot of the benefits is the salmon run. Where I live, I specifically chose to live within 10 minutes of two huge salmon runs. So I'm
Hmm.
able to fill an 8 cubic foot freezer, I don't know, 300 pounds of salmon meat in a week. And that feeds, you can feed a family of, you can feed your
Yeah.
family and your dog off salmon all
Yep.
year, which is nice. But both areas actually have a lot of benefits. And so if anyone's watching this trying to choose a homestead, if you don't like the winters, go to Oklahoma, or it's probably filled up. If you ask Nathan, go somewhere else, guys.
Yeah, don't
Let's
go
go.
go to Missouri, not
Yeah,
Oklahoma.
yeah, try Illinois. Maybe we're wrong about Illinois. Go there.
Yeah.
Um, so the energy portfolio, I rely on solar right now. As you guys can tell, it's the solstice, so the sun is right above my head. In Alaska, I get 24 hours of daylight this time of year. But in the wintertime, I use a lot of gasoline. For me,
Mhm,
gasoline is local. Actually, probably in Oklahoma too. It's locally
mhm.
sourced. So I spend $100 a month on my electricity prices. Plus, I use propane to heat my water and cook with. And then I use a lot of wood. A lot of wood. A lot of wood. Probably more so than you. But what's your energy portfolio looking like down there?
So one of the so the boundaries of the Zion region, I stop north and south due to temperatures.
Hmm.
You go too far north, you start having harsh winters, and then you have to start using a lot of energy, like for example, lots of wood. You go too
Hmm.
far south, it becomes really hard to keep things cool. You have to uh, a root cellar can only go so far south before it stops working. So then you have to start relying on more modern technologies, which break and require additional solar panels or windmills to make work. So the north and south boundaries of the Zion region are stopped due to temperatures. It's in this kind of sweet zone that's in the 40-degree latitude area, which is where most civilizations are built throughout history. Um, and then the east-west um, borders of the Zion region are because this is the most um, energy dense location for renewable technologies in the world. And that's due to a lot with it being far enough south that solar works really good year round. Like in Alaska during the summertime, I'm sure you have unlimited solar energy.
Oh yeah.
But during the winter, it's probably touch and go. You have to use gas and other things to make up
Yes.
the deficit.
100%.
Um, so once you get far enough south, especially if you're in the southwest, you have plenty of solar energy year round. As you move further north and specifically northeast, it becomes less and less uh, potent. But there's also Tornado Alley in the middle of the US. This is where a lot of wind energy comes from. I can see a wind farm from my house. So I know I have lots of wind potential. And the nice thing about solar is you don't have to think about it. It's there. You do have to brush off the panels, you have to clean the panels, but it's there. The nice thing about rivers is, again, it's there. It's constantly flowing. The catch is land with water is like 10 times the price.
Yeah.
The nice
Yeah.
thing
Anything
about
with the stream. Yeah.
wind, in the locations where it works, it is 50% cheaper than solar on the amount of energy that it produces. If you're in a valley, a windmill's not going to work good. If you're in a city, a windmill's not going to work good because you have buildings interfering with the wind flows. But if you're on top of a mountain like I am, I will have wind generation going on a 24-hour basis. Now, there is ebbs and flows like always, but the wind potential for self-reliance in a windy area is way cheaper than solar and solves a lot of the problems because you use most of your power at night.
Mhm.
You're watching TV, you're cooking dinner, and that's when solar's at its weakest. But whereas wind, it's 24 hours, so it can charge overnight. And they work great together. If you have the ability to use both, use both. So the energy potential in the Zion region is really easy for self-reliance. And that's kind of why I drew the borders east-west of where I stopped there, because once you get too far west, wind stops being as effective, and if you get too far east, solar stops being as effective.
Right, because of the cloud cover. If anyone's
Yeah,
wondering why. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Some people are gonna be like, well, how does that? No, it's clouds, guys. It's yeah, it's wetter out east. Interesting. So I guess, do you have a wind system?
I have not gotten to set it up yet. I'm still finishing up the house.
Yep.
But the very next step is to set up my windmills.
That is cool. Yeah, I have a I have 8 lead acid batteries. I'd love to upgrade to lithium ion, but I need more subscribers, more YouTube money for lithium ion. I got a comment. He's like, some guy was like, lithium ion, you should upgrade to lithium ion. I'm like, yeah, I should, dude. Absolutely. Good idea. Okay, so interest. So let's talk about population density. Alaska, I don't have to worry about it, but what's the population density in the Zion region?
So the um most of the Zion region is contained in the Midwest, and the Midwest is pretty much a combination of a lot of empty territory with a couple big cities.
Mhm.
I think that's most of the US, to be fair, but the Midwest takes this to the next extreme.
Right.
So, for instance, in Oklahoma, where the pop density is ridiculously small. In fact, I almost could use it bigger because of the business side of stuff. I
Mhm.
need more clientele, more customers. Um, but I'm only 3 hours away from three different decently sized metros. So that works out just fine for that aspect. But a lot of the rest of the areas in the Zion region um have a similar kind of landscape. Arkansas, I think, is um not obviously not as non-dense as Alaska, but it's one of the bottom of least people in the nation per state.
Right. Well, that
So,
that mm.
go ahead.
But that brings up an interesting point because everybody wants low population density, but then you're saying what are you going to sell if everybody else around you is also homesteading and farming? There's no market for your goods. I guess where I am in Alaska, we have a tourist season. So during the
Hmm.
summertime, all of the Southerners come up from Canada and wherever else, yeah, from America, spend their money. So we have a large market for like 3 to 4 months. We could sell basically anything. Stamp
Hmm.
Alaska on it. Um, there you go. Money in your pocket. Do you guys have anything like that near you?
So the part of Oklahoma where I went ahead and settled also has a tourist season, which is
Okay.
a very useful business tool, which is one of the reasons why I selected where I did.
Yeah.
And
What's the tourism? What brings them out there?
so the immediate proximity to me is a place called Robbers Cave, and it's has all sorts of famous outlaws from the Wild West ages. I want to say it was like Billy the Kid. Anyways, multiple different gangs use this area because it's got lots of caves and lots of rugged terrain that makes it real easy to get away from the cops. Um, but the kind of the whole general area is part of the what's known as the Midland Highlands of the US. This includes the Ozark Mountains, the Ouachita Mountains, and people just love to come see the scenery in this area. In fact, one of the most famous scenic drives is connect one end of it is connected to the town right next to me, and then it goes all the way across Arkansas into I think Tennessee, but it's considered one of the top scenic drives in America, and it's right there. So lots of people come down and see that. And so every summertime, especially in the fall time, people flood the little towns in the area and see the national parks in the area. And it drives probably not to the same extent of Alaska, but it does drive some tourist activity.
Enough where you can start putting some dollars and cents behind what you're growing on the
Yeah.
property. Which it
Yeah.
sounds like fruit and nuts. Is that kind of your
So I have a full-fledged business plan for my homestead side of things.
right?
Stage one is, well, stage zero is social media, just to kind of help that stopgap as you're transitioning over and building your homestead
Internet
business.
money, people. So subscribe, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stage one is woodworking. I have a lot of high quality trees in my area. It's got lots of pine, lots of oak, lots of hickory, and then a lot of high quality timber trees can be grown, and that's what I've already planted black walnut, which is a very expensive wood.
Yes, it is.
That's 30 years down the road, but I've already planted some.
Yeah, a little retirement. Yeah.
So woodworking is stage one. Stage two, animals are much faster of a cash flow than horticulture crops like trees and bushes. So stage two is introducing chickens and pigs because they don't need quality forage yet. You're buying the feed for them. And so they're building the soil while I feed them, and then I can meat chickens are, if you get a commercial variety, are only 8 weeks long. If you get a heritage, it's only 16 weeks long. That'll get you some cash flow in your pocket. When it comes to business, cash flow is king. And then pig is only 6 months. So that's stage two, is start introducing some animal products. The tricky part with animal products, though, is they're much more regulated than any other food good.
On a federal level, right?
Yes. So
Okay.
Oklahoma has something called the Food Freedom Act, and it um, this includes everything that's not animal products. Animal products, they still have their own regulations in Oklahoma, especially at the federal level. If you want to sell meat across state borders, you have to get a federal inspector to inspect the meat, which is why it's always done at a butchering place because they have the inspectors there. Um, Oklahoma has a Food Freedom Act, which includes pretty much everything else besides meat and dairy. And what this act includes, and a lot of states have something similar, is you do not have to be a commercial kitchen. You don't have fancy stuff that big corporations have to adhere to sell to massive conglomerates. I can't say the word. um, so instead, you're able to use a home kitchen. You're able to use your own um, products from your farm, and then you're able to sell them at farmers markets, in grocery stores, as long as the label includes something that says that this was done at a home scale in a home kitchen, not in a commercial scale.
Right on.
So the regulations for non-animal foods is way easier, much less of a headache, and is honestly more profitable, which is why stage three, I start transitioning over into the horticulture, fruits, nuts, and that kind of things. And if you don't want to do animals, instead of doing animals as stage two, what I recommend is doing a market garden as stage two, where you're growing leafy greens and stuff like that to sell at a farmer's market.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's a good idea. We have something similar in Alaska. It's a cottage. I think it's called a cottage permit, but basically you can sell stuff out of your house.
Hmm.
And I know there's ways to get around the animal stuff. This is Joel Salatin's been talking about it. I don't condone, but dog food is not regulated, and you can sell as high a quality meat to dogs as you want. So,
Oh, it's blurred.
oh,
I have Joe Salatin book right here.
there it is. Yeah, it talks about it. Yeah, get her. So like, here's the thing about the laws, guys. It's not state, it's federal. So it's a lot of bullshit. And to put it
Hmm.
into perspective, 13 colonies are 3,000 miles away from England during the Revolution. Alaska is 4,000 miles away from DC. So some food for thought.
Yeah.
Oklahoma's pretty far too, over 1,500 miles. So,
Hmm.
but yes, Nathan, thank you very much. I think that covers everything that I wanted to talk about. Just compare the two, and hopefully give some people a lot of information as well as to what they should choose to homestead in. Obviously, I think Alaska is great. I know it's not for everybody, and you'll clearly think the Zion region is great too. But I would miss the snow too much. I got snow machines, and I wolf hunt and moose hunt, and then the salmon run is too good for me to pass up. But I like that area. I have been down there. I like the Ozarks and stuff, so it's a nice part of the country.
Yeah. And see, I hate the snow.
Yeah,
So I am very much happy with only a couple of weeks of winter.
It
I
keeps the riffraff away and the commies, we like to say. But
that's true.
Russia, this was kind of, it was Russia's communist, but anyway, don't think into it too much. Yeah. Last point here before we run out of time. I noticed me and you have a similar opinion on Christopher Columbus, in
Okay.
that he's a great man
Hmm.
and the most important figure of the last 500 years. And I hope you don't mind me getting into some jabs in your comment section about him, because he's the one guy I actually really really respect, and I don't like how people hold our modern day moral standards to historical figures instead of understanding the historical context in which they were operating.
Yeah,
So
basically how I operate with historical figures is they were all, by more modern standards, vile, evil human pieces of garbage, but everyone else was doing it. They all kind of, this was their moral standards, and they really were. Christopher Columbus was not at all a abnormally um abnormal person. He was a merchant who went to a new area, found a other, because everyone in history viewed the next town over as less than human. And he was like, oh, this is perfect. This is a place where lots of new resources that I can bring back to help my people out. And so that's just kind of my viewpoint on pretty much any historical figure is, yeah, if you apply modern standards, they're all vile, every single one of them. But if you just look at the stuffs that they were trying to do, trying to accomplish, a lot of them were pretty good.
yeah, yeah, 100%. Nathan's Instagram account is awesome. I love the comment section. I try to withhold myself as much as possible because I just love fighting with people. It's not a good, well, it's fun. Anyone who's been
I
watching
enjoy
me
it
for a
too.
long time, yeah, they get it. They're like, this guy's out of his mind. But that's a nice thing. We're off the grid. We can say whatever we want. No one's gonna cancel us. We own everything outright. So
Yep.
like, there you go. There's a lot of freedom in this lifestyle, guys.
Yeah.
Check out Nathan Dickeson. Yeah.
Worst case scenario, I get completely ostracized from the internet. I go
Dude.
get a part-time job 1 day a week, and I still have all of my bills covered. Otherwise, I'm just doing what I want to do, helping people the best I know how, and they can't really do anything to me because I am self-reliant and self-sufficient, and I don't have any debt.
Yeah, amen. Do not participate in the usury system, guys, if you want to be free. So, thank you so much, Nathan. This has been great. And share, like, subscribe.